Hi, I'm Mark, and welcome to Let's Vibe. So, I felt like making a video and just talking about stuff. um, I was thinking last night about some of the past videos I've made where I'm talking about my struggles and my journey with manifestation and I've gone into some of my history and my experiences being on the spiritual path, and I just felt like, there's still aspects that I haven't really voiced out loud, and I think that has everything to do with fear and maybe even guilt in some ways. But I just wanted to talk about how kind of wild and strange and difficult this path has been in the last 5 years or so. And I'm often really hesitant to talk about the difficulties because, who enjoys difficulties? like, but yeah, this journey has been very unexpected in so many ways. It continues to blow apart my expectations of things, of how things will unfold, and certainly my ideas of timing are just not even close to divine timing, which has been a big challenge, a big learning experience. But I wanted to go back to the beginning and really vocalize, why I'm on this path, and exactly, to what degree I've dedicated myself to this path. I started this because I started this spiritual journey back in 2020. Like, very seriously, I started it in 2020 because I had lost my ESL teaching job. ESL is what I had gone to school for. I got my degree in teaching English as a second language. And nothing felt right. I graduated college at the end of 2017, and shortly afterwards I started working at an ESL school, and I like ESL. I love languages. I've always been very passionate about foreign language, and I'm in general passionate about teaching and education, linguistics, and yet nothing felt right. The work that I was doing just didn't feel anywhere near satisfying or enjoyable, really. There were certain aspects of my work that were enjoyable, but overall it was just like a source of stress. And that was a major red flag for me, because I had just come out of, or I was at the very end of a very, very long, arduous battle with depression and severe anxiety. And so going into a job where it was just more stress and anxiety, it was like, I am not going to do this. I am not going to spend my days, after I just spent over 10 years battling with ridiculous depression and anxiety, that I don't even really know how I got through it, but I did. And by the end of it all, it was like, I'm not gonna keep doing this. I'm not gonna keep living every day with anxiety and stress. I'm not gonna, like, oh, I just graduated from college, let's go into a job where I deal with stress and anxiety. And I know, I know that's what millions of people do every day. They work jobs that cause stress. And it's normalized. It's totally normalized. It's a given, I think, for many people. Stress and anxiety from work is like a given. Like, people expect that. Or they talk about it as something just very normal. And for me, and I knew that going into a job, I knew that, you know, there's likely to be stress. But when I started it, and when I started to feel that stress, and it started, you know, different things started to trigger my anxiety, it was like, what the hell? Like, I did not push through 10 years of hell so I could go to a job where I experience more stress and anxiety. Like, this is ridiculous. It was making me angry, to be honest. I was angry. I was like, this is insanity. This is absolute insanity. I am not spending my life like this. I have no more tolerance for the anxiety. I've worked too hard and for too long to heal from that damn anxiety, to just jump into it and live in it every day, you know, through a job. Like, what's the point? What is the point? What was the point of healing and working through depression and anxiety if I'm just going to continue living in that energy and doing jobs that cause and trigger that kind of energy within me? And so for like 2 years, I did that work. I mean, I forced myself to do it because I felt like, well, this is what I went to school for. What else am I supposed to do? Like, I by that point, I had spent years trying to figure out, like, what kind of job can I do that isn't going to put me in a constant state of stress? Because, you know, during the years of depression, I just couldn't really work, at least not on a regular basis. And it was very, very difficult to not just struggle with depression, but to struggle with depression in a society that we live in, a society, especially in America, where going to work is how you live your life. You go to a job every day or every other day, you know, whatever your schedule is. You go to a job. You work 9 to 5 or whatever the hours are. That is how people live. And so during the years of depression, as I was crawling my way through that dark valley, I was also just struggling with that reality of like, I need to find some way to support myself. I need to find a way to stand on my own. And, how do I do that when I've got a very serious mental health issues? Like, how do I do that? And I figured, since I've always loved languages, I've always enjoyed teaching and tutoring, I figured, that would be my outlet, my job, my way of participating in society the way people expect me to. And yeah, from the beginning, it was like, something's wrong. This does not feel good. This does not feel right. And at that point, by that point, having graduated and started working, that really was freaking me out. That really scared me, because it's like, well, now what? Now what? I just got this degree. I'm supposed to be doing this kind of work, and yet it does not feel right. And I don't know why. I don't understand why this doesn't feel right. I just spent 4 years studying this, and I love being in school. I love studying. I love reading and writing and all that stuff. That part was great. But yeah, it was like, what am I supposed to do if this is not it? If the ESL is not the right thing, I don't know what the hell I'm supposed to do. Because I already know there are so many other jobs out there, but I knew just from trial and error and just from knowing myself, I knew many of those jobs are not meant for me. They're either too stressful, they're too rigid, they just do not work for me. They put me in a really bad mental space and a really unhealthy emotional space. And I forced myself to do it. I forced myself to work at Starbucks for almost 2 years, also during the time that I was working ESL. Because ESL just didn't provide enough reliable work. There wasn't enough hours. So I had a second job, and I forced myself to pretend like I was a normal person working at Starbucks, the way people do. Kind of like how, a lot of people, they get a job at McDonald's in high school or when they're fresh out of high school. I chose Starbucks, and yeah, I just forced myself to deal with all of the stress of it, even though I could tell it was not good for me. It was not okay. I was angry. I was resentful. I hated, the crap that went on at work, just with managers, with coworkers. Although, granted, I did have some really great coworkers, but yeah, I was forcing myself to do this and just kind of hoping that it would work out, or it would be satisfying. Or also at the time, I was still very entangled with the opinions and approval of others, specifically my family and friends. I wanted them to approve of what I was doing, because for so many years during the Depression, people would get on my case about, getting a job, and you gotta do this, you gotta do that. And there's just so little understanding for mental illness. There is so little understanding. People genuinely think that the cure is to just get a job. I mean, how that makes any sense, I have no idea, but that literally is such a widespread response to mental illness. Oh, just get a job. Like, as if I became mentally ill because I didn't have a job. No. No, that's not how it works. So I was desperately wanting people's approval, which I thought would make me feel better and, more complete. And of course, that is such a dead end. And of course, no one was like outwardly approving of me and applauding me for, doing what was considered normal. Anyway, so by 2020, I was getting really mad. I had started working at another ESL school. It was a new school. At first, it seemed like a good place to work, and then I pretty quickly saw and realized that there were a lot of issues that were getting on my nerves and bugging me. I was doing my best to just look past it, and by 2020, I was like really getting very frustrated and at my breaking point. The job was ridiculous for many different reasons. And then this sudden halt comes for everybody in the form of the pandemic. And lockdown happened, and that job was over. And I was really grateful for that, although I was planning on quitting, but I didn't have to quit. The job just ended because, everyone was on lockdown. And in that moment, I felt an incredible amount of relief. And I was like, it gave me a period of time to really reflect on what had gone down in the previous 2 years. And I realized how exhausted I felt from everything, because also during those 2 years where I was working ESL and Starbucks, my dad had passed away. He passed away in May of 2018. So not long after I had graduated. And so that whole time I was grieving. As I was working at Starbucks, as I was working at ESL, I was grieving. So obviously that just added a huge whole other aspect to, my experience. And I just hated it so much. And I hated how I was forcing myself to ignore what I was feeling in order to do these jobs. So 2020 comes along, the lockdown happens. I just realized how completely exhausted I am. And I'm so thankful. I was so thankful for the lockdown because it gave me the break and the rest that I desperately needed. But then I also, during that time, like shortly after the lockdown started, I experienced this rather miraculous rise in my vibration. And I felt like I just all of a sudden, like I broke the surface of the water that I didn't even know I was under. But I felt like I broke through the surface of like a deep body of water that I had been in for many, many years. And it was this incredible experience of like feeling joy that I had not felt. I don't know how long. I don't know if I had ever felt it in my life. But I felt this joy. I felt this hope. I felt this renewed sense of life. I suddenly saw the world around me in a different light, in a different perspective. It was incredible. It was like just a miraculous kind of experience. And I know it didn't just come out of nowhere. I do believe that it was the culmination of many years of therapy, many years of inner work. So it wasn't just, out of the blue, for no reason. But at the same time, it was a miracle because I didn't know that could happen. I didn't know that would ever happen. Like, that was not on my radar. I didn't know that I could break out of that lower vibration, that heavier vibration. It was like discovering a new world all of a sudden. And that was the moment I was like, I am done chasing these jobs. I am done trying to work in the way that everybody else works because it does not work for me. And I cannot keep denying that. I cannot keep ignoring that. It is ruining the health and the stability that I've worked so hard for. I am not like everyone else. And on one hand, I think that's really cool, and I really cherish that. I really value that about myself. But on the other hand, I kind of hate it because it makes things more complicated. It makes things really challenging. Part of me really wished that I could just go to a job the way other people do and just live my life. But I knew in that miraculous moment, I was like, there is something better out there for me. I know there has to be. Look at what just happened. Like, this is crazy. This is crazy in a really good way. So from that moment onward, I was determined to follow my intuitive path, my heart's path, the path that had been quietly calling me all these years, but I didn't recognize. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what the issue was. I didn't know why these jobs just didn't feel right. I didn't know that there was another path. And I felt like this healing is mind-blowing and groundbreaking, and I have to pursue this. I have to pursue this new spiritual path. And so I was determined to do that, and that meant not looking for another job, as in, a typical job, which was really freeing. And I was excited about that, to move in another direction. I was excited to finally have a little more clarity about myself and my own journey. But at the same time, it was really scary because what is my family gonna say when they the lockdown and, that period of the pandemic, that lasted a number of months. And so I was able to get away with, not working, not finding a job during those months. But once the lockdown started to ease up and people started to go back to a slightly more normal life, then of course, my family and friends were expecting me to find a new job, to go back to ESL. And it was really hard to tell them I'm not doing that. I'm not looking for another job like that. I'm dedicating my time to this spiritual journey because I don't really know where it's leading, but it is so much better than what I was doing. It is so much better and so much more inspiring and hopeful and life-giving than the path that I was on previously. And of course, no one really understood that. I mean, it took me a while before I met other people who were in this spiritual journey, who were in this spiritual kind of work. But, family and friends really, for the most part, did not understand what I was talking about. And it was very hard for me to even verbalize what was going through my mind and what I was experiencing, because from that point onward, I started to do heavy meditation and deep inner work. And for a couple years, 2020, 2021, and into 2022 a little bit, my everyday routine and work was just meditation and inner healing, inner journeying, moving through all of the shadows that were still there, that were there from all those years of depression, and releasing the hurt and the pain and the fear and the anger. And I mean, it was a really intensive process. And I spent a lot of time by myself, working through that, working with crystals, connecting with spirit guides, guardian angels, source, practicing tarot and oracle cards. Eventually, I started to get into Reiki. But it was scary. It was scary to... I mean, people really didn't let up. Because they didn't really understand what I was doing, and it was hard for them to see that I was doing anything. Like from the outside looking in, it really looked like I was doing nothing. And that in itself was hard. That was hard to deal with, like to accept the fact that, yeah, my friends and family, for the most part, they kind of think I do nothing. And I can't really find a way to explain what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, because everything that I was doing was intricately tied with my past experiences up until that point. The depression, the illness, the darkness, all the crud that I had moved through is what led me to that point of intensive self-work and self-healing. But that's not something that's easily understood unless you yourself have experienced a similar journey. So there was a lot of pressure. There was a lot of pressure to find a normal job and appear, keep up appearances and show people like, hey, I'm normal. I've got a job too. And I struggled with that. I struggled really hard with the temptation to go back to some kind of job just to get, just to relieve the pressure of expectations, other people's expectations. And so, of course, I had to eventually do a lot of work around releasing other people's opinions and expectations, releasing it all, and not caring what other people were expecting of me, not caring what they thought I was doing, not caring about their opinions. And there was also a lot of guilt with that too. Like, I would often, and I still, it's different now, but I think once in a while it comes up. But I would struggle a lot with guilt because my ego would say, you know, what are you doing? Like, look at what all these people are doing. Look at all the hard work they do every day. They go to their jobs, and who are you to not do that? Who are you to think that you can get by and make a living not wrecking yourself at a stressful, annoying job the way other people do? Who are you to give yourself all of this free time to meditate and to heal and to rest when other people are working 2 or 3 jobs and, you know, working themselves to the bone, being exhausted every day? Like, who are you? And in that way, I felt like I was betraying my community or my society at large. It was a rough, it was a rough journey. It has been a rough journey. Hand in hand with the incredible joy and the freedom and the life-giving energy that has come with all of this healing. There's really been this polarity there's really been a polarity within this experience, within this journey. And I'm able to I'm able to get by because during my years when I was ill, I applied for Social Security because I just I couldn't work enough to make enough money to get by. Like, it just wasn't possible at the time. And I had my doctors, psychiatrists, therapists, and I worked with them and applied for Social Security disability, and I thankfully was able to get that. And that's what really kept me afloat during the years that I was sick and in the years after. And that's what allowed me to let go of the jobs that I had. I will say though, it still has been very challenging because Social Security it's not a lot. You don't get a whole, it covers my most important bills, but there's definitely room for some more income, some extra income to cover the rest of expenses. And so that in itself has been a challenge, how to get by with what I have. but I am certainly grateful for what I have, because without it, I would not have been able to do this. But I feel like sharing that practical part of this, because I know a lot of people, even friends, they wonder, like, how do you get by? How can you do this without any kind of job? And it's because of disability income. And that's just that's how I've been able to do it. I certainly wouldn't expect other people to go about it in that way unless they too have a disability of some kind. But so my situation was unique in that way, and it allowed me to walk away from those jobs. But it's been quite a journey, and I don't know what exactly made me want to talk about all of this today, but today, 5 years on after starting this, I'm in a very different place, energetically, mentally, emotionally, very different. However, my external circumstances and my 3D reality, as they call it, still kind of looks very much the same. Like, and that's been a challenge. That's been a challenge just in the sense of, like, what's going on here? Like, what? What is this divine timing thing? Because this timing is wild. I expected to have a source of income going at least a couple years ago. I expected to be able to start, reading tarot for people. I expected last year, I expected to start building clientele with Reiki. I really thought, things would get up and running, or things would take off much sooner than they have. I just recently I participated as a reader at a very small psychic fair at a healing center not far from me. And that was a really cool experience. I'm so glad I was invited to do that. It did give me a little bit of practice reading for strangers, and just, it was cool to experience a psychic fair. I've been to psychic fairs, but only as like a visitor, as a customer, I should say. And so that was cool to apply my skills there, but it really didn't go the way that I had wanted it to go. I didn't get the number of customers that I had planned on getting, or that I was intending on getting. It was a slow day. And it really, it was definitely a good experience. And there were some interesting things that happened. I got to connect with the owner of this healing center and meet some other healers, people in this field of work, and that was awesome. But the fact that it was slow, and I only had one customer come in and ask for a reading, but it left me feeling like, what is going on? Why is this still? Why was it a slow day? Like, why? I've been waiting for this. I've been working towards this. I've been um like, this is wild. Like, this, I don't understand. The timing and the way that things are unfolding is just so bizarre. Because I was fully like, I'm gonna go to that psychic fair. It's gonna be successful. I'm gonna have, at least 4 or 5 customers to read for. I'm gonna make some money. And that's not how it went down. And it left me thinking, like, or it left me wondering, like, God, what are you doing? Like, what is this? Why was it slow that day? I've been asking for this for a long time. I've been wanting to create an income with this work, with these skills that I've been practicing. Why did it go down the way that it did? And so I guess, in the last few days I've been thinking about that, and I don't know, I think it just made me feel like I want to just I want to share and talk about all of this, because I feel like I haven't really gone into all the nitty-gritty before. And there were things that I hadn't shared, about work and about not working, and about dedicating my time 24/7 to healing, and it can be hard to talk about because it's so out of the usual. It's so beyond the normal. Like, who spends 24/7 working on healing and spiritual work? And it's just kind of unheard of in a sense. And it can be really scary to talk about it out loud, and to actually admit to people that, yeah, this is what I do every day. I'm looking for clients. I'm looking for opportunities to help other people with my tarot, with Reiki. But up to this point, the message that I've been getting, that I've been receiving from Spirit, has been wait, rest, heal. Like, and I even, back in last December, just a few months ago, I attempted to get a job as a tarot reader at a crystal shop nearby. And the interview, which was essentially doing a tarot reading for the woman who was, the hiring manager, it didn't go as well as I had wanted it to. It was a little weird. It was kind of messy. A messy reading. And it just did not work out at all. For a couple different reasons. But again, that was like, what the hell? Why the hell did that not work out? Why, like, hello, Spirit, was that not an opportunity to finally share this work, these skills, like, and do this and make some money with it? Like, why did that fall through? I don't get it. I don't understand what you're doing. I don't understand the timing here. I don't understand why you keep having me wait on things like that, or why I'm nothing makes sense. Nothing. So, this is definitely a longer video. I don't want to get too long, so I'll wrap it up there. But I just really wanted to share with everyone, like, the realness, the nitty-gritty aspects of this, and the strangeness and bizarreness and craziness of this journey. Anyway, thank you to everyone who has been watching and following my channel, my videos. I appreciate you. I appreciate your comments and questions. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, thank you so much for vibing with me.